Welcome to the Onion Buns. So the Liberals have hit a new low. I know you hear that all the time. It's a daily occurrence, but they've hit a new low. A Liberal MP to them to collect $1 million bounty, kidnap a conservative candidate, take him to the Chinese Consulate, take him to China, and imprison him or worse. And Carney's reaction to this? He doesn't see a problem with it. Nothing. Any other person or party, this candidate at a very minimum would be removed, like tossed. You're out, done, buddy. We just saw the Liberals, one guy in Calgary, he has a history of domestic abuse. Apparently the Liberals are so compromised and ineffective that they can't even vet their own candidates, which makes perfect sense if you think about it, because for the last 10 years, they have flat out refused to vet illegal immigrants and immigrants coming into Canada. So why would they vet their own candidates? So anyway, I got a video of a journalist asking Pierre Poilievre this and his reply to it. Take a look at this.
I'm Terence Shen, independent journalist covering foreign policy and global affairs. Recently, Liberal MP Paul Chang suggested that someone could hand over your party's candidate Zhou Tei to China in exchange for a bounty from the communist regime. Many people saw that not only as a threat to Canadian citizen and political opponent, but also legitimizing foreign interference in our democracy. What's your response to his remarks? And after his apology, do you still believe he should be disqualified from running for office? Thank you.
Yes, he must be disqualified. I find it incredible that Mark Carney would allow someone to run for his party that called for a Canadian citizen to be handed over to a foreign government on a bounty, a foreign government that would almost certainly execute that Canadian citizen. Think about that for a second. We have a Liberal MP saying that a Canadian citizen should be handed over to a foreign dictatorship to get a bounty so that that citizen could be murdered. And Mark Carney says he should stay on as a candidate. What does that say about whether Mark Carney would protect Canadians? Mark Carney is deeply conflicted. Just in November, he went to Beijing and secured a $250 million loan for his company from a state-owned Chinese bank. He's deeply compromised, and he will never stand up for Canada against any foreign regime. Is another reason why Mr. Carney must show us all his assets, all the money he owes, all the money that his companies owe to foreign hostile regimes. And this story might not be entirely the story of the bounty and a Liberal MP calling for a Canadian to be handed over for execution to a foreign government might not be something that the everyday Canadian can relate to because it's so outrageous. But I ask you this, if Mark Carney would allow his Liberal MP to make a comment like this, when would he ever protect Canada or Canadians against foreign hostility? He has never put Canada first, and that's why we cannot have a fourth Liberal term. After the lost Liberal decade, our country is a playground for foreign interference. Our economy is weaker than ever before. Our people more divided. We need a change to put Canada first with a new government that will stand up for the security and economy of our citizens and take back control of our destiny. Let's bring it home.
Yeah, so to be clear, the MP in question here has admitted to doing this. And even this reporter was from Global, but we've seen CBC and CTV and Globe and Mail all talking about this as well. Again, I've said this before. The only time the mainstream media will run a story that is negative on the Liberals is when it is beyond their ability to hide it. Because we've seen them hiding a lot of stories thus far. I mean, we're only maybe a week into the election, and we've already seen at least 20 conflicts by Mark Carney being hidden by the mainstream media. They won't talk on it. They will not hold him to account. So the fact that you have them asking about it now tells you how serious this really is. And Carney, I mean, you might have pressure come tomorrow and Carney might dismiss him tomorrow, but that's 2 days late already. He should have dismissed him the second this became public knowledge. Like, it's a no-brainer. And the fact that he's not doing that tells you everything you need to know about Mark Carney. And let's be clear, he's got lots of conflicts. I'm going to go over a few of the hit ones right now. These are all proven. I'm not going to put up the proof again. You can go back in my videos and find them. It's all been sourced. It's all been proven beyond any doubt. He blocked Canadian pipelines for 10 years while he built pipelines in Saudi and the Middle East and made millions, maybe billions. He won't release his financials, so we don't know how much money he made, but we know he made a lot of money. Brookfield made a lot of money building pipelines for the Saudis and the Middle East while blocking pipelines in Canada under the guise of environmentalism. Apparently, a pipeline in Saudi and the Middle East is not an environmental concern. It's only an environmental concern if it's built in Canada. Like, are you really that stupid to believe that? He mined coal in America to sell to China. Of all places. China has the largest carbon footprint in the world. Coal is the dirtiest energy form in the world. So by selling coal, American coal, to China, he increased China's carbon footprint, which again proves he is not an environmentalist. That same coal, the miners he used to mine the coal were not given proper equipment. They are sick and dying from black lung. Carney's answer? He cut them off of medical insurance. Maybe they'll die quicker now. Does that sound like a good person to you? Ethical person? Because to me, it sounds like a villain, an evil, evil, evil villain. Someone who should not be running for the Prime Minister of Canada, someone who should be in jail, rotting in jail. He got the Peruvian government to build roads or fund for Brookfield to build roads, and then Brookfield turned them into toll roads, and the tolls are so expensive, 90% of the Peruvian people can't afford to use the roads. The Peruvian government is suing Brookfield and Mark Carney for this because the roads were supposed to be for the Peruvian people. But Mark Carney doesn't care about the lowly little plebs. He only cares about the rich buddies. This is one thing Jagmeet Singh, I don't agree with Jagmeet Singh on much, ever. But one thing I agree with Jagmeet is Mark Carney is only interested in helping his billionaire friends, like Donald Trump. Speaking of Donald Trump, Raja Group, the group that Mark Carney's wife was one of the higher up in, Gerald Butt is one of the higher ups in, Evan Solomon was one of the higher ups in. They had an internal meeting and they decided, and this is a month old, so this is even before the tariffs hit, that they would use Trump and tariffs as a way to divide Canadians and get Canadians to vote for the Liberals and Carney. And then once the election is over, they would just give Trump everything he wanted because you can't fight him. That is a direct quote from an internal memo from Eurasia Group after a meeting with Mark Carney. That has been their plan all along on how to handle tariffs. Does that sound like he's got Canada's best interests at heart? Sure doesn't to me. There is numerous criminal investigations going on in the States into Brookfield and Mark Carney. Does that sound like an ethical, honest person to you? Doesn't sound to me. And I mean, we can get into the UK. The UK is warning us daily not to elect this guy. So at some point, people need to put their fucking ideology aside and focus in on the facts. And the facts are Mark Carney is not a good person. He's not an ethical person. He's not a nice person. He is a dastardly black hat, evil, evil, evil villain. And you cannot put somebody like that in charge of a country. You can't. Stop pushing ideologies and look at the facts already. They're all there for you. All you got to do is take the blinders off and look at them. So there's so many clips and everything about this topic. Let's take a wander through all the different headlines and everything that you can find in Twitter on this topic to finish off. So here we have Lily, Carney mama on Liberal MP who urged people to turn in opponent to China. Both parties denounced Liberal who called for Conservative candidate to be handed over to China. The NDP has joined the Conservative Party in denouncing controversial comments made by Liberal MP, while Liberal leader Mark Carney appeared to be hiding from the media on Sunday and Saturday. The second day he didn't take questions after a story about one of his MPs and current candidate broke Friday. This is typical Mark Carney. Every time something goes against him, he hides. This is like the 5th time we've seen him hide since the liberal leadership started. So this is nothing new. As soon as the waters get tough, he hides. So reacting to the scandal around Liberal MP Paul Chang, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh condemned his remarks. It's up to Mark Carney to decide if Chang continues to be as a candidate, but as a leader, I would absolutely not allow him on my team, Singh said. In January, Chang, a Liberal MP and the party's candidate in Markham Unionville, was speaking to Chinese language media in Toronto when he encouraged people to grab Conservative candidate Joe Tay and hand him over to the Chinese authorities. To everyone here, you can claim the $1 million bounty if you bring him to Toronto's Chinese Consulate, Chang said. Joe Tay, running for the Conservatives in Don Valley North, was born in Hong Kong and has spoken up often in support of democracy in China and against the crackdown on democratic advocates in Hong Kong. So basically, you have a Liberal MP who is anti-democracy. That's really what it comes down to. He is telling people to kidnap a pro-democracy person, and which is illegal in Canada to begin with. So he's encouraging a crime, which means he should be charged. And if we had any other government in power, he would be charged. Take him to the Chinese consulate, have him shipped over to China, where he would probably be put to death, because we just saw China put 2 other Canadians to death. And yet Carney's okay with this. For that reason, authorities in Hong Kong put a 1 million HKD reward out on Tay's arrest. Chang told people to go and collect the bounty by turning over one of his political opponents to the Chinese authorities. New Democratic MP Jenny Kwong, herself a target of foreign interference by China, described the comments as absolutely astounding. Now, actually, she's wrong. It's criminal. His comments are criminal. That is intimidation at its worst, and yet he played right into it. He advocated for people to bring him to the Chinese consulate to collect bounty. In what universe is this normal? Kwong asked. Kwong said when people from China and Hong Kong in Canada are already afraid to speak up, Chang's comments make it worse. After these comments made news in English on Friday, Chang apologized. Who the fuck cares if he apologized? And according to a statement from the Liberal Party, that seems to be the end of it. No, he should be removed. He should be charged. He should be imprisoned. What he did was a criminal offense. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre reacted to the news without outrage, saying that it was unacceptable that Chang remains in his party's candidate in Markham Unionville. I find it incredible that Mark Carney would allow someone to run for his party that called for a Canadian citizen to be handed over to a foreign government on a bounty. The foreign government that would almost certainly execute that Canadian citizen, Poilievre said. It was recently revealed that China executed several Canadian citizens over the past several months. Of course, China also famously kidnapped and held Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor in an attempt to use them in a case of hostage diplomacy to free Ming Wazhou. That's on top of China's industrial espionage at the once great Canadian companies like Nortel and their ongoing attempts to interfere in Canada's election cycle. Again, they've done it for 2 federal elections prior to this. But here's the thing. They always promote the Liberals. So the Liberals always turn a blind eye to it. This is the party that some of you are voting for. If this was Russia, you would be losing your fucking minds. But this is not Russia. This is China. And suddenly you're okay with this. You are hypocrites. Now we have a Liberal MP advocating handing over a Canadian citizen to China, where he could be killed. And Mark Carney is standing by and saying nothing at all. His Liberal Party is looking the other way and not as Poilievre said in the previous clip. Carney is so conflicted when it comes to China. And it far predates what Poilievre was talking about. You can go back to the Bank of England when he was there, and he was making backroom deals with China as well. So Mark Carney is deeply conflicted. Just in November, he went to Beijing and secured a $250 million loan for Brookfield management from a state-owned Chinese bank. He's deeply compromised, and he will never stand up for Canada against any foreign, and we know this now. We've seen the Eurasia Group memo leaked where he's not standing up for Canada against Trump. He's using Trump to try and get elected, and if he gets elected, he's going to give Trump everything Trump wants. He's not standing up for Canada. He never has. He never will. That loan Poilievre mentioned came after Carney, who was advertising Prime Minister Trudeau at the time, who was advising Prime Minister Trudeau at the time, went to the Beijing meeting with several high-level level officials, including President, I'm not even going to try to say that name, under Carney's leadership. Brookfield Asset Management significantly increased their assets under management in China. Well, I would hope so. They sold China a ton of American coal while killing American coal miners, helped in part by leveraging ties Carney built in China while he was governor. That's what I was just talking about, Bank of England. Carney is pitching to voters that he knows other world leaders and he knows how the world works, but maybe he knows them in the wrong ways. He should know that what China would do to a Canadian handed over for 1 million HKD bounty, and that should be enough for him to fire Chang. The fact Carney won't do that raises questions about him, his connections, and his motivations. Now, let's be clear. I suspect Carney, because of the media pressure today and Saturday and Friday, Carney will fire this guy on Monday. But that's not good enough. He should have fired him on Friday. The fact that he took the whole weekend to mull it over, probably contacted China a few times, said, hey, I'm in a hard bind here, so I'm going to have to make an example of this guy, but I don't want you guys to be mad at me. Hey, people, read into what's happening here. All right, we got Robert Fife. Now, Bob Fife just wrote a horrible attack ad on Poilievre that he knew was wrong. He knew there was no facts to it. There was no basis to it. It was a 3-year-old case that had already been finished. There was no wrongdoing by Poilievre, but on behalf of Carney and the Liberals, Bob Fife wrote the attack ad and attack piece anyway. So you know how conflicted Bob Fife is, and even Bob Fife calls Mount for Carney to fire a Liberal candidate who said conservatives should be turned to the Chinese bounty. You know, even this guy he's as corrupt as they come for media outlets is now reporting on this. Warren Kinsella, he was the writer and war room advisor for Jean Chrétien in the 90s. He is a through and through Liberal. Carney is an idiot if he allows this bounty MP to stay on his ticket. Then another post by Warren Kinsella. Carney mum on Liberal MP who urged people to turn an opponent to China. So yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unthinkable. And Mark Carney just doesn't care. Like I said, I expect come tomorrow, Monday, Carney will fire this guy. But that's not good enough. It should have happened on Friday, the minute it happened. If this was the NDP, if this was the Conservatives, if this was the Bloc, that guy would have been fired like that, and there would be criminal investigation. But because he's a Liberal, he gets to go the weekend. Carney's mulling it over. As I said, he's probably contacting his handlers in China, getting their feedback, making sure he's not ruffling any feathers, giving his case of, I kind of have to do this because this is bad for me. So I expect this guy will be relieved of duty come tomorrow or maybe Tuesday, but that's not good enough, people. That's not close to good enough. And I keep saying it, but it's enough. Put your ideology aside already. Take off the blinders and start seeing Carney for who he is. He's not a good man. He's a very evil, conflicted villain. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, and share. I'm trying to grow the channel. A like, a subscribe, and a share. It helps me immensely, and never think I don't appreciate those people that do like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate you greatly. Thank you very much. If you dislike the video, you're probably a Liberal with blinders on, so I really don't care anymore what you think. Do whatever the hell you want to do. Always feel free to leave a comment. Don't worry, I don't swing my cane too strongly if I dislike your comment. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Bye.